London, 1918. A city scarred by 4 years of relentless conflict now steps cautiously into peace. Streets once dominated by the uncertainty and fear of war are slowly reclaiming life, purpose and celebration. From crowded squares to dignitaries' processions, from civic campaigns to public welcomes, Londoners are witnessing the delicate first days of a world trying to rebuild itself. These images, painstakingly reconstructed, reveal not just history, but the rhythms of daily life in a city forever changed by war. London entered the First World War suddenly. In August 1914, crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace as news of war spread across the city. This scene shows the atmosphere at the very beginning of the conflict. People filled the streets around the palace, drawn together by uncertainty, excitement, and fear. For many Londoners, the war began not on a battlefield, but here, in the heart of their own city. In this film, I use modern AI tools to reconstruct a selection of original photographs from the Imperial War Museums. These reconstructions are visual interpretations based on real historical images, intended to help us imagine what these moments may have felt like. Only a few months later, London's parks were no longer simply places of leisure. This photograph shows soldiers of the 9th Battalion, London Regiment, leaving Hyde Park on a route march in December 1914. The Queen Victoria's Rifles were part of the territorial force, made up largely of men who had volunteered from civilian life. Hyde Park became a familiar departure point where military discipline replaced the routines of ordinary weekends and public gatherings. Not far away, another sign of the war appeared in everyday streets. Outside Charing Cross Hospital, a large notice reads, "Quiet for the wounded." Traffic was diverted away from the building to reduce noise. By September 1914, London's hospitals were already adapting to the demands of modern industrial warfare, receiving injured servicemen and reorganizing their surroundings to create spaces for recovery. The war also reshaped who was visible in public life. This photograph shows Christina Broome, known as Mrs. Albert Broome, displaying her camera and photographs at the Women's War Work exhibition at the Prince's Skating Rink in Knightsbridge in May 1916. Often described as the official photographer to the Guards, she documented soldiers, training, and military life throughout the war. Her presence at this exhibition reflects the expanding role of women in professional and public work during the conflict. In Piccadilly, sailors are seen unloading pictures outside the Royal Institute of Painters. The photographs were being prepared for the first naval exhibition held in London. Exhibitions such as this brought the distant war at sea into the capital, allowing civilians to encounter images of naval operations and service that would otherwise remain far beyond their view. Nearby, another photograph records a sudden disruption to the familiar streets of the West End. This image shows a fire near Piccadilly, close to the Naval Photography exhibition. London continued to function as a centre of culture and public events, even as emergency incidents and wartime pressures increasingly interrupted daily life. By the summer of 1917, the war had become unmistakably international on London's streets. On the 15th of August 1917, American troops paraded down Piccadilly carrying the Stars and Stripes. The United States had entered the war earlier that year, and this procession symbolised the arrival of a powerful new ally. For many Londoners, this parade offered a visible sign that the conflict was entering a new phase. Yet the war was no longer distant from the city itself. This view looks across the roof of the General Post Office towards St. Paul's Cathedral, following an air raid on the 7th of July 1917. Piles of debris and salvaged material cover the rooftop. This was the second daylight aeroplane raid on London, and the damage was caused by a 15-kilogram bomb. For the first time, civilians experienced the threat of aerial attack as part of everyday urban life. Only a few months later, further damage appeared elsewhere in the city. Outside the Bedford Hotel on Southampton Row, people gather beside a large bomb crater. The damage was caused by a 50-kilogram bomb during a Gotha raid on the night of the 24th to 25th of September 1917. Crowds often formed around these sites, drawn by shock, curiosity, and the need to witness what had happened to their own streets. By the end of 1917, London also became a stage for public fundraising and national mobilisation. A tank is displayed in Trafalgar Square during the War Bonds Appeal in November and December 1917. Weapons that had only recently appeared on the battlefields of Europe were brought directly into the centre of the capital, turning military technology into a tool for persuasion and financial support. Nearby, along the Mall, captured German artillery pieces were exhibited. This first gun is a captured German 13.5 centimetre field gun. Another photograph shows a German 7.7 centimetre field gun with its muzzle destroyed. These displays transformed instruments of warfare into public symbols of victory, encouraging confidence and continued commitment to the war effort. After the fighting ended, London's public spaces were once again filled for a different reason. This image shows Trafalgar Square during the Joy Loan campaign, a post-war funding scheme intended to support national recovery. The city was now adjusting to peace, while still bearing the financial and social consequences of 4 years of war. On the 28th of December, 1918, President Woodrow Wilson and his wife Edith arrived in London by horse-drawn carriage at the Mansion House. The American president's visit reflected the new international role of diplomacy in shaping the post-war world. London, once focused almost entirely on survival, was now hosting discussions about how peace would be organised and remembered. Crowds continued to gather in the months following the armistice. This final scene shows people lining Pall Mall and nearby streets to greet Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig on his return to England on the 19th of December 1918. The same city that had assembled in uncertainty outside Buckingham Palace in 1914 now gathered to acknowledge the end of the conflict and the men who had led it. From the outbreak of war to the first uneasy steps into peace, these photographs show a London shaped not only by battles fought elsewhere, but by waiting, watching, adapting, and enduring at home. Through these reconstructed images from the Imperial War Museums, we are offered only brief glimpses of a city under extraordinary pressure. For the people standing in these streets, beside these buildings, and beneath these banners, this was not history. It was simply their daily life in a city at war.